All right, let's head over to the Astros.
We gotta talk about ceiling and floor, Big C.
Oh my God, I always forget the ceiling and floor. I don't know. All right.
Ceiling, I'm gonna say Tom said high. I said medium. I'm gonna say medium. I think
What
if
is
I think if this team misses out on the playoffs, it's because of the seventh. And that
yeah,
seven seed of Maya is like 85, 86 wins. But I don't see them going above 94, 95 wins.
I was gonna say like I don't see him hitting 100. I don't see this team hitting 100, which I feel like Tom does based on that comment.
Yeah.
I would say around 95 wins, and their floor is around 83, around there.
What would have to go? Rodriguez would have to get hurt. That's pretty
Like
much,
J Rod would have to get hurt, and Castillo would have to revert to 2021, and Robbie Ray would have to
yeah,
just be
be
Robbie
last
Ray.
year. Yeah, I'll take that. All right. Now
And
it's
yeah,
Astros time. Now
now
it's
it's Astros
Astros.
time.
The Houston Astros, if you guys didn't know, they won the World Series last year, which is a pretty good thing to
Ooh,
do in baseball. The Houston Astros last year, they went 106 and 56, which again, very good thing. They were the second best team in baseball behind yours truly, the Los Angeles Dodgers, who lost in their first round of the playoffs. They Justin Verlander won the Cy Young Award. Jose Altuve had his best career year without trash cans, and Yordan Alvarez was third in the MVP voting. They were really, really good last year. It's kind of fitting that I don't think we did this on purpose. We end with the World Series champs from last year. That's a good
we
way
did
to.
not.
I think next year we kind of need to fix the organization of this. That's a
That's
side note.
that's definitely true, but we can discuss that.
Yeah. They were really, really good last year.
Oh my God, yeah.
We talk about wanting to see a team fail, and I think a lot of us want to see the Astros fail. They are a dynasty. They
Hmm.
have a real World Series ring, whether you like it or not. I don't like it, but they have a real one. They were elite, and it just seems like they keep the train going.
Yep. I
What
mean,
happened?
so you remember how Justin Verlander won the Cy Young, right? Well, he
Yeah.
left. He decided he was done. Christian Vasquez, he heads to the Twins. Ledmus Diaz goes to the Athletics. Yuli Gurriel, thank God, he heads to the Marlins. Jason Castro retires. Will Smith goes to the Rangers, and Trey Mancini goes to the Cubs, right?
I would like to
So they
clarify
lose
that
all
Justin
those
Verlander
guys.
didn't retire. He went to the Mets. Kind of sound like
Did
he rode off into the
I say?
sunset. No, you
Oh,
never
I
said the
didn't.
Mets.
I didn't. Okay. Well, he's a Met now, right? That you lose out on the Cy Young. That was my point. But they go out, they re-sign Rafael Montero, they extend Christian Javier, who a lot of people have as a Cy Young favorite this year. They go out, they sign Jose Abreu to a 3-year deal, and sign Michael Brantley back to a 1-year deal. Like, that's incredible.
I don't know
Like,
why they
you
spent
got
so much on
worse, but
Rafael
got
Montero.
better. You got
They
worse, but you got better. Like,
spent a ton of money on Rafael
they
Montero.
did 3 years, 34 million. Yeah. I guess they like him.
And it's just think about it like this, right? That's 5 million less than the Tyler Anderson contract.
Yeah.
I like the Michael Brantley signing. I would have liked to see another team try and pick him up, in all honesty.
I
Um,
think we all did we I'm trying to remember back to our free agency. I think I had him going somewhere else. I think
I
we all
did.
had him going somewhere else, besides I think Aiden maybe.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Let me see. Free
Um,
agency predictions. Michael Brantley. I had Baltimore. Steves, you had Texas. Aiden had
yeah,
San Francisco, and Tom had Seattle. So again, I think we ought to like to see the reliability and versatility of Michael Brantley's bat just allows him to play on any team and fit into any lineup. I think the issue with having Michael Brantley, if there is any, is you're gonna have to put Jordan Alvarez in left field for some games,
yeah.
and that's not something you really want to be doing nowadays.
No, definitely not. But yeah, let's talk about this rotation, right? So they got Framber Valdez, Christian Javier, Luis Garcia, Jose Urquidy, and Hunter Brown. And Hunter Brown is their top prospect, and he's gonna probably be. Is he officially on the roster?
Yeah, because McCullers is
Yeah.
injured.
And like Brad just mentioned, Lance McCullers is injured. Hunter Brown, I'm gonna read this exactly off of Brad's notes. He's Justin Verlander light. So they basically just traded out Justin Verlander for a younger version of him obviously like not as good right now, but hopefully we'll get to that point if you want to continue on with the rest of that, Brad.
with
With Hunter Brown.
Okay, so basically, we talk about him being Verlander light. He's got the same fastball, the same slider, but his slider's slidier and faster. But he doesn't have great command. Walks a considerable amount of people. 94 to 96 sound like Verlander to me. But it really looks like that he might be a 4 inning starter right now. That's really due to his lack of control in his youth. And right now, unlike Verlander, his curveball is actually his best offering, which is kind of unique. We don't really see many elite. I don't think elite curveballs are as common as they used to be.
That's fair. I'm trying to think of, yeah, because most people go to their slider a lot. You have your fastball. Yeah, I don't really think
The best
like
curveball in baseball last year
curve.
was a negative 13 run value. Where again, run value doesn't mean pitch quality.
Yeah.
But it was Zach Allen's curveball and then Max Fried's curveball and then Framber Valdez's curveball, who also happens to be on this team with a pretty good curveball. It's crazy how that works, isn't it? That curveball we mentioned, though, it ranked number 38 in baseball for best pitches. So you can see how
Yeah,
it'd
he's
be
pretty
kind of
good.
unique, an unique look. I like Framber Valdez. I think
Yeah.
he's fine. He had the shift so much last year. But
Okay.
I think I have him and Alek Manoah in a similar group in my mind. Because I think ground ball sinker pitchers, even though I know Manoah is a bit more strikeout than Framber Valdez. Um, I think Manoah to be more, and Manoah also pitches to a launch angle pitcher. But again, I think he's a ground ball pitcher. That's the perception I get, right?
Yeah.
And the Astros have a really good defense behind Valdez. So will they be able to make up for that? Yes. But who are they missing right now in that lineup? We'll talk about that in a second about the rest of that lineup. They're missing Jose Altuve for 2 months. He's been a
Yeah.
really key part of this infield for a decade. Like Framber Valdez lets up pretty high average exit velocity. Again, he's a ground ball pitcher. It's like that's going to be expected. But when you have less time and more range you have to make up, there's a higher probability for hits just in that alone.
Yeah.
He's not going to pitch to a high FIP because he's a ground ball pitcher. That's just how FIP works. Luis Garcia, he's interesting to me to some degree. Jose Urquidy added a cutter last year and he performed fairly decently. And then Hunter Brown, right? I think this rotation can be very good, but I'm worried. I think I'm solidly worried about the Astros rotation, but not like I'm not as worried about the Astros rotation as I would be the Mariners, but I am worried about the Astros rotation given who the Houston Astros are.
Yeah, that's definitely fair. I mean, we talked about it. Lance McCullers is already out with an injury. He was one of their like big three last year. Outside of obviously their Cy Young. And I mean, Brad mentioned it all. Like, there's concerns for each of these pitchers. I mean, obviously, I like Framber Valdez. I'm really high on Christian Javier. I really like Christian Javier. I have since he came into the league. Hunter Brown is pretty good from all accounts. And then you got guys like Luis Garcia and Jose Urquidy who are going to go out and do their thing. There are concerns. I have those concerns as well. But I think they're going to be all right. Again, they are the Houston Astros, and I think they're going to be completely okay.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that I'm trying to find there was something on a vertical approach angle with pitches,
Yeah.
and Christian Javier has like an elite vertical approach angle, which basically it increases your deception on a rising fastball. Like for reference, the best pitcher in baseball for a vertical approach angle above average is Josh Hader. Shocking, right? That a sidearm fastball would be really deceptive and really difficult to hit, especially at its high velocity. Christian Javier excels at that because he has a sneaky low release point, which is sneaky high in its growth.
Yeah.
And that's why everyone's so high on him. And I get that. I understand that. I just worry about his inning count. I'm not worried about Christian Javier as a pitcher. Of the 5 starting pitchers in this rotation, I am most confident in Christian Javier's ability to get quality outs. I worry about his ability to throw 180 innings.
How many innings did he throw last year?
He threw 148.2.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's definitely cause for a little bit of concern there because he threw 148 last year, through 101 the season before, and then in the COVID year threw 54 and a third. So, I mean, I think there's definitely some cause for concern, but I don't know. It's kind of his first year to try and kind of come out and be the ace. He just got that big extension. So I think he kind of has a little bit. He kind of wants to prove that the money wasn't quote unquote wasted because it was just to kind of avoid arbitration, that contract extension. But
It bought out 2 years
um,
after too.
so again, I think he has. I think everything's kind of right, and I think he's gonna come out and I think he's gonna perform at a high clip.
I agree. I think the issue is he is supposed to be their Verlander this year, and he will be compared to him.
Yeah, that's fair. It's a high bar to set too.
What's the bullpen look like?
All right, so got Ryan Presley, Rafael Montero, Brian Abreu, Hector Neris, Ryan Stanek, Phil Maton, Seth Martinez, and Ronel Blanco.
Said it on the last half of this episode. It's a top 10 bullpen in baseball. Ryan Presley is elite. He is one of the best closers in baseball. Underrated too. Rafael Montero, he had a huge breakout last year. Like before last year, he was really a nobody. And the
Yeah,
Astros threw him in their magic chamber, and he's now magic. Brian Abreu is a guy that everyone has a huge everyone sees him breaking out to be one of the best relievers of baseball, which makes kind of sense because he has 2 pitches that are 140 plus on stuff plus. That's
yeah,
very, very good. Hector Neris can be pretty solid, can be pretty bad. Ryan Stanek was filthy last year. I believe he had a nearly sub 1 ERA. It was above 1, but Phil Maton effective, Seth Martinez effective, and I don't really know Ronel Blanco. I'm looking him up right now. And last year he wasn't very good, which is really. I'm
was he
curious
with the
what.
Astros last year? Or?
Last year he was with the Astros and he only threw 6 1/3 innings pitched. So I'm really curious to see what he is, because I'm not going to make a judgment based off of 6 1/3 innings pitched last year.
Yeah, that's fair.
Because this screams to me Astros do fantastic thing and guy
But
becomes fantastic.
yep, that's fair. I mean, again, you kind of touched on everyone. I mean, they're a good lineup or they're a good bullpen. They're gonna come out and do their thing, and I think they're gonna prove that they are a top 10 bullpen. Hector Neris is always a funny name to me because I always watched him when he was a Philly. And he was just always hit or miss, and some things never change. And he is not going to change. I think he's probably the most, well, outside of probably Ronel Blanco, probably the shakiest of anyone in the bullpen. Would you agree with that? Or
Seth Maton or Seth Maton, good job. Seth Martinez and Phil Maton could be in my. Okay, here's the thing. It's a reliever, right?
yeah,
The relievers are the most versatile players in baseball because you even saw Josh Hader last year. He had a rough month and it ruined his entire season. That dude's the top 3 best relievers in baseball when he's on. He's unhittable.
yeah,
Ryan Presley could have a rough 4 save stretch and have a 4 ERA on the season. I
yep.
can't fully evaluate relievers on something like that, but I do understand where you're coming
Okay, that's fine. Let's get into this lineup now. So you got Jeremy Pena, World Series MVP leading off, Kyle Tucker, Alex Bregman, Jordan Alvarez at the DH spot for most days. And then they went out and they got Jose Abreu, obviously, so he's going to be at first base. David Hensley is the second base replacement currently. Chas McCormick's in left, Jake Myers in center field, and Martin Maldonado behind the dish. Obviously, you didn't hear Jose Altuve. He's hurt for about 2 months. And Michael Brantley, not surprisingly, is also out currently. Off the bench, they got Corey Lee, JJ. Brad, can you help me on that? Matajevich, Mauricio Dubon, and Justin Durden.
So,
Um,
it looks like Matajevich and Durden are going to be they're just there until Altuve and
yeah,
Brantley are back.
yeah.
But Altuve and Brantley back are being out are pretty big deals, right? I don't quite understand, unless I have his positioning correct, why Chas McCormick isn't in center field. I feel like Chad
Um,
again for
I
reference.
mean, yeah,
All the lineups we do are grabbed off of Fangraphs website. So if we're wrong, blame Fangraphs, not us. I think Chas McCormick should be their center fielder, and he very well might be. Jake Myers, I'm pulling it up right now. He's not an offensive machine. It's also the Astros, so that doesn't mean anything. He struck out 34% of the time. He had a 258 WOBA, and he had 7 outs above average in center field.
mhm.
That's pretty good comp. That outfield defense of Tucker, Myers, and McCormick is going to be fantastic. Kyle
Yeah,
Tucker is a perennially underrated outfielder. Those two guys are very solid defenders. It's just a really good defensive team now that I'm thinking about it. Bregman can pick it. You saw that bounce play in spring training, right?
Yeah.
That like he got a ground ball and he turned a double play, but he was on like a weird angle, so he hopped the ball to second base and it worked perfectly.
Yeah,
Jeremy Payne last year, sorry.
he said he was I think he made a comment that he was like working on it because he didn't want it was like it was too close to like or it was too close to throw it and it wasn't close enough to flip it. So he just threw it as hard as he could into the dirt. And he said he'd been like working on that just to see if it would work.
Yeah, I guess spring training is the place to try that.
Yeah.
Jeremy Payne's defense is really good. I'm still not completely sold on him.
I think it's gonna take a couple more seasons for him to fully break out in the regular season portion of the MLB season. But I think he's gonna be that type of player that clutches up when it matters most, like we saw him do last year.
Yeah, and the thing is, right? Like even when he was red hot in the postseason, the walk tool still wasn't there.
Yeah.
Like he walked twice in 61 plate appearances. That's not very good. Obviously, you saw what he can be. He's got 7 outs above average. So is this the best defense in baseball heading into the season?
I mean, top to bottom.
Yeah.
Trying to think.
Okay, so I'm pulling up. So for reference, David Hensley, the guy who's supposed to be replacing Jose Altuve for the duration of Altuve's injury, below average defender, but he didn't have any position stability. But in his 23 batted balls last year, he had a 440 WOBA, which is better than Aaron Judge's season last year. He walked 15% of the time and struck out 17.6% of the time. So it just looks like another cog in the Astros machine.
Yeah.
I don't really know if that's what he's going to be, but and then we're not even talking about Kyle Tucker, Alex Bregman, Jordan Alvarez, and Jose Abreu. It's just like I think we take them for granted how good they are.
Yeah. I mean, I think you covered everything I want to say. Again, Jeremy Pena, he's gonna come up in clutch moments and do his thing. I do agree. I'm not fully sold on him quite yet. I think it is going to take a couple more seasons before he is kind of that within that top 10 conversation. Like I
think
want
he's
him
in
to
the
be.
conversation.
I think he's in
don't
the
think he's in.
conversation. Like he's planted within that top 10. That's what I was trying to go at. Kyle Tucker, some people's MVP candidate for this team. Alex Bregman goes out, does his thing, makes weird plays, hits the ball pretty hard. Jordan Alvarez literally hits the ball to the moon. Jose Abreu literally was an MVP, 3 seasons ago?
2020, yeah.
And now he is on the World Series champion roster. Like I don't they literally got better somehow. Or at least offensively they got better.
I agree. We don't express any concerns about their offense by any stretch of the imagination. We stretch our concerns about their starting pitching, and that's pretty much the only thing we stretch concerns about. I'm pulling up Martin Maldonado's catching metrics. He was actually a average framer last year. Shocking, right? But he was a well above average, 2 blocks above average blocker last year. And it makes me want to highlight their prospect, Yainer Diaz. He is a catcher with average defense, but he's listed as the best catcher in their 40 man. That's out on top of Corey Lee, who used to be a lot higher of a heralded prospect. He really hasn't panned out. Hard to do that with playing time. He's a free swinger, but he only strikes out 15 to 17% of the time. His comp is Travis d'Arnaud, which is really interesting. Like that's not a guy I think I'd comp someone to, but you know what? His issue is his hit tool may not be the best. He struggles to pull fastballs in, and he really hits them only to right and center field. And he hits breaking balls that don't really break too much. So it looks like he's a guy that'll feast on bad pitching but struggle against good pitching.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of excited to see if they call him up, let him play, right? I mean, everyone's got to be compared to somebody, right? Like, someone had to be compared to Travis d'Arnaud. Might as well be this guy, right? If he comes up and let's say Martin or Maldonado gets hurt and he can come up and kind of get some relief and get some work in with Corey Lee and try and kind of fight for the spot, I think they're definitely going to do that and see what he can provide.
All right, you ready for predictions?
Yeah, you kick it off this time.
Okay, so originally I had them going 104 and 58. Altuve injury knocked him down a couple to 101 and 61. Still, I think that's tied for my best record in baseball with the Atlanta Braves.
Yeah.
Crazy. Two organizations that are run very similarly, and have very good teams, good farm systems, sign their stars,
Yeah.
best teams of baseball. For the MVP, I had Yordan Alvarez. It is Yordan Alvarez. Guys, he's best pure hitter in baseball?
He
Probably.
is, yeah, he is the best pure hitter in baseball.
For their Cy Young, I had Christian Javier. I think, as I said, I have the least amount of questions about him. I just think that there's less. I worry about his innings. Um, and then for the breakout, I had Hunter Brown. I think he'll be very good for them. I don't think he's going to be a. I'm trying to. I don't think he's going to be fantastic. I think he'll be good. I think he'll be in
Yeah.
the rookie of the year race, but not like Spencer Strider was last year. And for the
Yeah.
most important, I put Framber Valdez.
Okay.
It depends on the severity of his regression. If he's very similar to what he did last year and produces the same results, the defense plays the same behind him, and he's just as effective, throws 200 innings, that's a huge deal for this team with questionable starting pitching.
Yeah. I was a little lower at him 162. I I think with your best player, quote unquote, let me put quotes around that. Your let's say franchise player and Jose Altuve being out for 2 months, that's definitely gonna hurt. And with the question marks around the starting pitching, I kind of knocked him down a couple pegs for that. MVP is obviously Yordan Alvarez. And Cy Young and breakout I have is Christian Javier because I do see him taking that leap into Cy Young candidacy, and I think that is enough to equate a breakout, if that makes sense, just that big of a jump. And most important, I have just their starting pitching staff in general. If their starting pitching staff can click as a whole, sky's the limit. But it's just a matter of if it can do.
And I think it's the Astros, right? Like we know it's going to succeed to some degree.
Yes.
It's difficult to see a organization with this prowess just fall off the face of the cliff. They're not going to do that, guys. As
Mm-mm.
much as you may want them to, they're not going to do that. However, I don't think for the first. Oh, I think it's Tom's, and then I'll make that thing.
Oh, okay.
Tom had them going 103 and 59. I think I just don't know if he reequated once Altuve got hurt, or if that's what he's had,
Maybe
or
not.
if he did. His MVP was Kyle Tucker, and he said it was a warm take, not a cold take, or warm take. That's not a hot take. Kyle Tucker's a really good baseball player.
I mean, I'm trying to think because like outside of Jordan, who would be their MVP?
Bregman.
Like Bregman, Abreu, Pena.
Yeah.
I mean, he's within the top 5 of their MVPs, I would say.
Yeah.
So I don't feel like that's a warm take at all.
No. And for Cy Young, he had Christian Javier. For their breakout, Hunter Brown. And for most important, he put Jose Abreu, which I get. It makes sense. It gives depth to a lineup. It's your biggest acquisition this offseason.
Yeah.
If he performs, it just makes the team that much better. And then he said, I think there's a chance this team shows signs of weakness for the first time since 2017. Clearly, he does not remember the fact that they went 29 and 31 in 2020.
Yeah.
But I get where he's coming from. I think I can't remember my predictions for every season. I know I had them winning the division last year. I think I had them winning it in 2021, but it was a lot lower of a record.
I mean, in 2021, the only other team I probably would have had above them would be the Angels, and I don't see myself putting the Angels over them.
Yeah.
And then I didn't make projections for 2020, so.
Yeah, I think this team's so good. You can't doubt them. For their floor, I'm going to put them at our highest projected Mariners record of 92 and 70.
That seems fair. Because at their worst, I would say they're the Mariners.
Yeah. I'm looking at my records. I had the Angels winning the division in 2021 at 88 and 74.
What was that Angels lineup?
I think it was just mediocre, insert mediocre Angels lineup with Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani. Oh my God, my Cy Young that year was Kenta Maeda. Anyways, back to the Houston Astros. It's crazy how far we've come. Their floor 92 and 70. Their ceiling is their ceiling better than the New York Mets' ceiling?
If everything clicks right, I don't know. I'm hard pressed to say yes in all honesty.
I'm right there with you. I think
Because if everything clicks right, like we have to readjust the Mets though, because since we had that, Edwin Diaz got hurt.
ooh, that is true.
So
So
yes, I
originally
would
we had
say
the
it is.
okay, because we had the Mets going 108 and 54 for their ceiling.
I would say that would be the I would say that'd be the Astros ceiling now, and the Mets are a couple clicks down at like 104 or something like that.
I like that. I'm excited for this year. We've talked
I'm
about
excited too.
every single team. If there's a specific team you want to go hear about, every single team's out now. You can go check it out on YouTube. You can go check it out anywhere where you get your podcasts. Everyone's out. The predictions are out. All that's left to do is talk about awards and playoffs, which will be coming out tomorrow on Wednesday. Thank you all for listening to the Florida Baseball Podcast. If you want to interact with us at all social medias will be in the link in the description below. Guys, opening days in 2 days. It's here. We've made it through the off season, guys. Thank you all for listening to the Florida Baseball Podcast. We'll see you all next time. Peace.